Are things ever just one way or another? Are things that are subject to perspective ever truly grounded in reality? Or are these types of things varied at all times? The world we inhabit is a product of the duality of both good and bad. It is a platform at which those who inhabit project their own biases to form commonality with those who inhabit the world, and more so establish things that we consider foundational. We consider things to be premises and grounds for fact. From things such as religion and even the sciences, perspective is a driving force in the accumulation of knowledge. And perspective is also the driving force of generational change. Sometimes, considering that most of life is a mundane ordeal, we have to find ourselves victimizing the self in order to create duality within life. The reason that we view some things as suffering, some things as bad, some things as not good for us, is so we can experience things that are good for us, some things that we enjoy. It is duality that creates a world of beauty. It is because things are ugly that allows some things to be beautiful. It is because some people aren't free that allows others to be. These foundational ideas for the striving of human desire, even, the only reason they stand to exist wholly is because of the contrast within them. It is this sort of duality that creates the value within our life. It is the reference to perspective that creates this notion of worth. This worth and the self are constructs of reference. Considering how we are societal creatures, we are social, we have to be in reference to something to truly be, to have any attached connotation. It's as if the only reason someone can be nice is in reference to someone else's meanness. What I'm saying here is things simply always are just as they are. It's just a reference to perspective that creates the duality and the connotations that plague our consciousness. It's just a perspective and the intrusive mind that shapes our realities. These sort of things cloud our judgments. They take us away from the reality of other possible realities. We tend to assume that this first sort of perspective that we have and outlook on the world is the one that is exemplary and correct. When in reality, I believe that the first things that we come to think of are the things most heavily subjected to our biases and some of our prejudices as it pertains to the world around us. Like, it's because of these certain happenings of our past and happenings of the present that creates this somewhat unmundane outlook on the world. And it makes sense that we have this sort of strive for a interesting perspective because due to the way our society is currently set up, this idea of peace and not doing and not having any worries is somewhat mundane. We view happiness as when you're experiencing, like, what I'm saying is we're not equating peace and happiness as the same thing. And I don't think that we necessarily should. However, I feel like peace is something that's never truly appreciated. And for that reason, we find ourselves constantly victimizing ourselves or victimizing others in order to create, stark differences in emotion and create reaction. Because there are many possibilities within reality. But just because negative possibilities exist does not mean that we always have to brace for them. I think we should really accept the negative if it is to come and expect the positive, because having that sort of dominion of negative over your brain at all times is never going to be beneficial to you. It's one thing to worry about something that you have an inkling will happen rather than something muddled up from unanalytical nonsense. Stuff muddled up from the ego, like your pain and suffering being projected into how you view your environment and how other people interact with you. But the problem with duality is it's somewhat of a made up thing. Regardless of how we view this certain something, it simply is the way it is. Just as both sides of the coin are still sides of the coin. And all parts of the self are still parts of the self, no matter how much we bottle them up or push this negative aspects of ourselves into a state where we only present the positive, or we only believe that we are the positive. And this is what I mean by the victimization of self, because we feel as if we are positive things and we don't have that sort of duality, and we view others as if they only have that one aspect of themselves. And we tend to be so much more forgiving for looking at the other negative aspects of other people. But when it comes to ourselves, we kind of never try to shift our own perspective. And I feel like it's that kind of time taking that we need to do in order to truly overcome some of these issues of the past. Because it's not as if you're not great because something happened. Like, you can, I think that experiences can be viewed as negative things, but I think that the accumulation of self should never be viewed as negative. If you even have any shot at changing your perspective, because there's nothing to gain by thinking that you're a negative thing, and all the more to gain by thinking you're positive. So it's in our own hands to beckon this sort of change. This change of how we view the minute and the mundane. It's up to the outlook, the mindset to change the perspective, not the thing being looked at. I feel like too often we try to look at things until they change miraculously in front of our eyes, as if we look at a situation over and over again without any difference in mindset, that it's miraculously going to change in front of our eyes. Like, oh, nope, never mind, I see it this way. When in reality, most of the negative connotations and feelings are negative feelings created from your mind. And it's from the negative perspective. No matter how much you analyze a certain something, it's just going to keep spiraling back and forth because that's your current perception of it. It is in the same way that we need to change how we look at the world in order to exist within it.